My fellow Africans, my brothers and sisters across the world, today I speak to you not just as the leader of Burkina Faso, but as a witness to an extraordinary moment in our global history.
The early morning mist hung low over the sprawling parade ground in Beijing. It was a day of ceremony, a day where the skies seemed to pause for the synchronized roar of marching boots and the rolling thunder of engines. Across the massive square, banners fluttered in hues of crimson and gold, reflecting the rising sun. Every detail had been rehearsed to perfection, down to the cadence of the drums, the angle of the rifles, and the gleam of the armor. For Captain Ibrahim Traoré, standing among an assembly of international guests, it was not just another day. The air was thick with significance, diplomacy, and silent calculations. His military jacket bore the insignia of a young leader from Burkina Faso, a figure who had recently caught the world's attention for his boldness and vision of sovereignty. Yet, here he was, thousands of kilometers from home, awaiting a moment that would become the subject of whispers and interpretations. The salute. The arrival. 2 days earlier, the aircraft bearing the Burkinabe flag touched down at Beijing Capital International Airport. The runway shimmered under the summer sun as an honor guard lined the tarmac. Ibrahim descended the stairs with a firm step, his expression calm but observant. Around him, a delegation of aides and military attaches kept close, their notebooks ready to catch every nuance of his visit. The invitation had been formal, an opportunity to attend the National Day Military Parade of the People's Republic of China, an event where alliances are hinted at in gestures, and power is displayed in formations of steel and precision. It was a spectacle that drew leaders, commanders, and envoys from every corner of the globe. Xi Jinping, the host, was expected to arrive only on the day of the parade, but his presence was already felt everywhere, in the immaculate preparations, the rehearsed welcomes, and the undercurrent of strategy that pulsed beneath the ceremonial smiles. A meeting behind closed doors. The evening before the parade, Ibrahim Traoré found himself in a meeting room at the Great Hall of the People. The room was vast, lined with intricate carvings of dragons and phoenixes. There, seated across a polished mahogany table, were senior officials of the Chinese government. Discussions ranged from infrastructure development to training exchanges and defense cooperation. But the conversation was more than just formalities. Ibrahim, known for his pragmatic tone, spoke candidly about the challenges of securing sovereignty in a world of competing interests. He listened intently as the Chinese hosts presented their visions of partnership. Not of domination, they insisted, but of mutual respect. As the evening wound down, an aide leaned in and whispered to him, "Tomorrow, your place is among the honored guests. There will be a moment, when the Supreme Commander passes, that you may extend your respect." Ibrahim nodded. "A salute, then," he said quietly, the words hanging between duty and symbolism. The parade begins. The morning of the parade broke with a chill breeze sweeping through Tiananmen Square. Thousands of soldiers stood in formations so precise they looked carved into the earth. Tanks, missile carriers, and drone fleets glinted in the sunlight, their engines idling in rhythmic growls. The air smelled faintly of oil and gunmetal. Crowds gathered behind barricades, waving flags and singing patriotic hymns. Television crews positioned themselves on elevated platforms, their lenses trained on the avenue where history often unfolded. Ibrahim took his place on the reviewing stand, positioned between the envoy of a Middle Eastern state and a delegation from Southeast Asia. From here, he could see the length of Chang'an Avenue stretched like a stage, a theater of disciplined power. Then the drums rolled. A fanfare of trumpets cut through the air, and the crowd erupted into applause. Xi Jinping appeared, standing tall on a moving open-top vehicle, dressed in the dark tunic of the People's Liberation Army. His eyes swept the crowd with measured calm as he acknowledged the formations that saluted him in turn. The moment of the salute, as the convoy drew near the reviewing stand, the anticipation thickened. Cameras pivoted. The crowd hushed. Ibrahim felt the weight of the moment. This was not merely a gesture of courtesy. It was an image that would circle the world, analyzed for meaning and intent. Xi's vehicle slowed as it passed the international guests. Leaders nodded. Some waved. Ibrahim, in his tailored dark green military jacket, straightened his back. His gloved hand rose in a firm, deliberate arc to his forehead, a salute crisp and measured. Xi Jinping turned his head briefly, acknowledging the gesture with a nod as the vehicle moved on. For a fraction of a second, the two men's gazes met, one representing a vast nation of global influence, the other a rising figure from a land carving its path toward independence and self-reliance. The salute was neither overplayed nor hesitant. It was a soldier's respect to another commander, but also a signal of presence. Burkina Faso was here, watching, choosing its own stages. Reflections during the march. The parade stretched on for nearly 2 hours. Columns of infantry marched in lockstep, each division representing a facet of China's evolving defense. Hypersonic missile carriers followed, their shadow long upon the asphalt. Female honor guards marched with precision, their boots striking the ground in perfect unison. Ibrahim's mind, however, drifted beyond the parade. He thought of Ouagadougou, of the soldiers back home, of the dusty streets where children played and vendors called out beneath the sun. Would they see this broadcast? Would they understand the calculus behind a salute in a foreign land? He recalled a proverb his grandfather once told him: "A warrior salutes not the man, but the moment that may build a bridge for his people." Conversations after the parade. When the final echoes of the marching bands faded and the aircraft roared past in a diamond formation, the guests were ushered into a reception hall overlooking the square. There, over cups of steaming green tea, conversations resumed. A journalist from a European agency approached him with a cautious smile. "Captain Traoré, what does your salute today signify?" "An alliance." Ibrahim's lips curved slightly. "It signifies respect," he said simply. "A soldier salutes discipline, courage, and the will to defend one's people. That is all." But among the aides, the meaning was already being debated. Was it a gesture of neutrality, a step toward strategic partnership, or simply the courtesy of a guest? The departure. 2 days later, his delegation boarded the flight back to Ouagadougou. The tarmac was quieter this time, the fanfare gone, replaced by the whir of engines preparing for ascent. As the plane rose above Beijing, Ibrahim gazed at the city sprawling beneath him, its rivers, highways, and shimmering towers. Somewhere down there, the parade ground still bore the marks of marching boots. He thought of the salute again, replaying it in his mind. The angle, the timing, the look exchanged. Would it open doors? Would it stir storms? Only time would tell. Back home, when he landed back home, the story had already traveled faster than his plane. News outlets had replayed the clip of him saluting Xi Jinping countless times. Some praised it as a sign of diplomatic maturity. Others warned of reading too much into gestures. Ibrahim, however, returned to. The morning sun in Beijing rose like a golden banner, stretching its light over the vast parade ground where thousands of soldiers stood in symmetrical lines. Each rifle gleamed. Each boot was aligned with the next, and each step was rehearsed perfection. The air held a mix of tension and pride, for this was not just a parade. It was a demonstration of power, discipline, and presence. Leaders from various nations were gathered to witness the event, among them a young and resolute figure from West Africa, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He had arrived in China 3 days earlier, his visit shrouded in both expectation and speculation. As the head of Burkina Faso's transitional leadership, his every move was observed by allies and critics alike. The invitation to attend the National Day military parade had been extended with great formality, a symbol of Beijing's intention to deepen its ties with Africa. For Ibrahim, it was both an opportunity and a test, a moment to navigate the fine line between diplomacy and sovereignty. On the morning of the parade, he stood on the reviewing platform alongside other dignitaries, his uniform pressed and his expression composed. The massive square before him was alive with color. Rows of red flags fluttered against a pale sky, banners bearing Chinese characters danced in the breeze, and the drums of the ceremonial guards rolled like distant thunder. Cameras from every major network in the world zoomed in on the guests, ready to capture gestures that would be analyzed far beyond the square. The crowd erupted in synchronized cheers as the convoy approached. Xi Jinping stood in an open-top vehicle, dressed in a dark military tunic, his hand resting lightly on the railing as he passed along the lines of saluting soldiers. He projected calm authority, nodding occasionally as the formations presented arms. The convoy slowed as it reached a row of international guests. One by one, leaders and envoys offered respectful nods, waves, or claps. When the vehicle drew near Ibrahim, he felt the weight of the moment. His hand rose in a sharp, deliberate arc, fingers touching the brim of his cap in a crisp military salute. It was a gesture trained into him by years of service, but here it carried a different resonance. Cameras flashed. The salute was neither theatrical nor hesitant. It was firm, precise, and brief, an acknowledgement of discipline, not a subordination. She turned his head slightly, returned the acknowledgement with a nod, and the vehicle rolled on. For a second, the world seemed to pause. Then the drums resumed, the soldiers marched, the tanks rolled forward, and the sky thundered with the roar of jet formation streaking overhead. But in that fleeting exchange of respect, a wave had begun to move, one that would ripple far beyond the parade ground. After the event, a reception was held for the foreign guests. Crystal cups of green tea were served, toasts were exchanged, and soft diplomatic language filled the hall. Ibrahim spoke briefly with Chinese officials about agricultural cooperation, infrastructure development, and defense training. The conversation was polite but firm. He made clear that Burkina Faso's vision was one of partnership, not dependence. Yet he also recognized the reality of geopolitics. Respect was a first step toward resources, and resources were the path to resilience. When he returned to Ouagadougou days later, the salute had already become a subject of discussion. News channels replayed it on loop, analysts debated its meaning, and foreign ambassadors requested clarifications. Some hailed it as a sign of new diplomatic maturity. Others warned it could be interpreted as leaning too closely toward Beijing. Ibrahim, however, said little. He returned to his work, meeting with local governors, visiting rural projects, and reviewing defense plans. To him, the salute was a courtesy, not a treaty. Yet the world rarely treats symbols as simple. Soon after his return, letters arrived from across the globe. China sent a proposal for technical assistance in renewable energy. A European power requested an urgent dialogue to reaffirm existing agreements. Even distant nations from South America and the Middle East expressed interest in shared initiatives. The salute had turned a spotlight on Burkina Faso, a country that for too long had been treated as a pawn rather than partner. Not everyone welcomed this shift. Foreign correspondents published cautious articles. Some NGOs released reports warning of emerging influence. On social media, manipulated images appeared. His salute frozen in a frame, edited to suggest loyalty pledges that had never been made. One night, a call came from a Western embassy. The voice on the line was cool and deliberate. "Captain, the world is watching your salute," the diplomat said. "We hope it was only a gesture and not a signal." Ibrahim replied evenly. Sometimes a salute is just respect, but respect often achieves more than threats. He ended the call without further explanation. Weeks later, a Chinese delegation arrived in Ouagadougou, not with pomp but with plans, blueprints for irrigation networks, proposals for road rehabilitation, offers for military engineering cooperation. Over a modest dinner in the presidential compound, their leader, General Zhang Wei, spoke with quiet candor. "Your gesture in Beijing," he said, "was a door opening, not just for us, but for your own people. We do not seek to dictate your path. We seek to walk with you." Ibrahim listened, measured as always. "A door must not become a chain," he replied. "We will cooperate where our interests align. But Burkina Faso belongs to Burkinabe." In the months that followed, that single gesture began to bear consequences. Some subtle, others visible. Road construction began in provinces long neglected. Talks of a new medical exchange program surfaced. Soldiers trained with updated methods that did not carry the flags of former colonial powers. At the same time, rumors swirled, accusations mounted, and foreign pressure tightened. But Ibrahim stood by his principle. A salute was not surrender. It was a recognition of strength, and respect was the first language of sovereignty. One afternoon, during a visit to a remote village where a new grain storage facility was being inaugurated, an elderly farmer approached him with a question. "Captain," the man asked, "they say you saluted a great leader far away. Will that salute bring rain to our fields?" Ibrahim smiled faintly. "It will not bring rain," he said, "but it may bring the tools to capture the rain when it comes. It may bring roads to carry your harvest. Sometimes, a hand raised far away can open a door close to home." As the seasons passed, the image of the salute continued to circulate. It appeared in newspapers, in debates at universities, in documentaries about Africa's evolving diplomacy. To some, it was a symbol of pragmatism. To others, a point of suspicion. But in the capital, young cadets began to repeat a new saying: "A soldier salutes not the man, but the moment." One evening, long after the initial frenzy had calmed, Ibrahim stood on his balcony overlooking the city. The call to prayer echoed through the streets, and the lights of motorcycles traced golden threads across the avenues below. He thought of that day in Beijing, the roared jets, the press of cameras, the nod returned by a distant leader. A simple gesture, yet it had shifted the conversation of nations.